Welcome back to Off the Record Overtime with a representative, the Democratic floor leader. Have you ever seen anything like this before?
No.
Incredible, isn't it?
That's one word for it.
Does the governor get any credit or blame for what happened here?
I didn't engage with her during the lame duck period, and we didn't have any interface with her as a caucus. I'm sure the speaker and her had communication, but you'd have to take that up with her.
Well, would it have helped had she come into the caucus and said, boys and girls, let's bow our heads and get this done?
We're a co-equal branch of government, and I think that a lot of our colleagues wanted to set an agenda and move priorities that were important to House members, and that was the attempt. But to reiterate the point, we had no engagement with her during the lame duck period as a caucus, and myself as an individual legislator. So,
does that surprise you?
We have a trifecta, so I think the expectation is the Democratic governor, the Democratic Senate, and the House can try to work together. So.
To that point, one of the days, apologies, time is all blurring together now. Attorney General Dana Nessel got on Facebook and started posting that lawmakers who were basically abdicating their job and not showing up to session, it was criminal. How much, if any, did that play into caucus conversations and the inevitable sort of end to this year, considering I saw a number of your colleagues very displeased with the fact that the Attorney General did weigh in that way?
It's unproductive, right? If you're not going to help us move a priority across the finish line and move a negotiation, popping off on Twitter or Facebook is not helpful. So, like I said, we are a co-equal branch of government, and the legislature legislates. And any suggestion that our colleagues should go to jail is a unnecessary accusation and unproductive in many ways.
Well, that still doesn't mean it's legal.
Then the Attorney General, if she thinks it's illegal, then she's the Attorney General. She can prosecute.
Do you wish that Democrats had challenged the governor more and put more things on her desk that she may not have necessarily been all the way in favor of?
I think there's an appetite amongst the Democratic caucus, certainly in the House, I can't speak for the Senate, to set our own agenda and move things forward that we believe is important to the state. And we made an attempt to do that. Now the question becomes what gets signed, and I think we have to wait and see. But I would absolutely say we have been cooperative partners, advancing priorities that were asked of us and said this is important for the state. We would have liked to see a little bit more reciprocity in that regard.
So can you guys work with Mr. Hall? Will there be compromises and bipartisan support for stuff coming out of the Republican caucus next year?
I'm retiring December 31st, Tim. I don't know. You're going to have to ask the Democratic House.
Well, what's your gut tell you?
I will say that Leader Hall has not shown any willingness to come to the table on some issues. Like I said, on the sine die adjournment, we couldn't even reach a conclusion there. So I will not be there as a legislator, so I can't answer that. But I know that my colleagues in the House, particularly in the Democratic caucus, are still committed to getting work done, and we still have a Democratic Senate and a Democratic governor. So there has to be a willingness to come to the table.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, on that note of not being able to adjourn sine die, why come back New Year's Eve at 1:30? What do you know about the, thought process behind that?
I wasn't on the floor for that. I was in the middle of negotiations. I can't answer the specifics of that particular deal.
But speaking of floor activity, excuse me, yesterday, the decision to move the call of the House, I guess there had been talks about wanting that for a couple days, then it very abruptly happened after Representative Whitsett was already in the Capitol. I suppose, were you at all privy to the logic behind that call? Did that catch you by surprise? I suppose, what kind of went into making that decision?
I was not a part of that discussion as to why it happened. It certainly caught me by surprise. When it was brought before me, I'd asked to please hold off so I can try to work with Representative Whitsett. And by the time I'd gotten to her, I was informed that the call of the House had been ordered, which was a surprise to me. But I think that's a question that the Speaker of the House would have to answer.
To that point as well, Speaker Tate was notably absent from speaking to any media members at all this week. I suppose, what do you have to say about that? And to the point of him making a big grandiose statement on Twitter about leadership and needing to lead, but then seemingly shying away from any public-facing criticism there. What is your response to sort of that duality there?
I mean, we had a Republican caucus that would not show up and even give us the ability to say, all right, if there's disagreements on moving legislation, can we at least bring people to achieve quorum to adopt sine die and to adopt commemorative resolutions for outgoing legislators and to have farewell speeches and get them recorded in the journal? That did not happen. So even the ending of the House, where our colleagues that are not coming back to have the ability to say goodbye and to their constituents, to the families, to the state of Michigan, which is a tradition that has been long-standing for centuries, unfortunately, is not something that was provided to our members, which is incredibly disheartening and disappointing. So
what are you going to do after this?
Sleep.
Bad question. Let me rephrase it, Your Honor. After you sleep and get back to normal, what happens in the new year for you?
You know, I don't know yet. I have.
What do you want to be?
I want to be a man that makes my mother happy, that will figure out what to do with his 8 years of remaining eligibility in the legislature, and try to continue to do good work for the city of Detroit and my community.
So you're not ruling out a potential further legislative run in the future?
You know, we are too soon to this session.
I mean, we're already
to make that
speculating on the governor's
determination.
race, so we may as well, right?
Well, you know, I have 8 years of eligibility left, so we can cross that bridge when we get there.
Representative, what are you most personally disappointed didn't cross the finish line the past 2 years?
When you look at ways to show that we are an institution that should earn the trust of constituents, you look at FOIA expansion. I think that was something that I would have liked to see get done. You know, as the reporters know, I'm pretty open and very direct in many ways, and answering some questions and sort of giving you folks an open inside look on how things happen and why things happen. But certainly water affordability was heartbreaking to see not get done. Legislation around protecting kids from tobacco and nicotine products. It's a huge problem in the city of Detroit, where folks are selling these products to underage kids. And I think there's a slurry of bills. You know, we still had to do more work on gun legislation, polluter pay. You know, protecting the environment is a huge priority for me and has been. And I think protecting survivors of auto injuries and those that have been abused sexually. Those are all things that I think about and worry. And obviously the fear of deportation for undocumented folks and unwillingness for Republicans to not weaponize an issue that I think was just pure cowardice at that point, where I had Republican colleagues telling me in private, we support allowing undocumented folks to get driver's licenses and IDs as a matter of safety and a net positive for the state. But for them to say we can't do it because we're afraid of Trump was very, very heartbreaking. And there will be literal families ripped apart and ruined as a result of not getting that done.
Representative, go really quick.
In the issue of political capital, do you feel like you Democrats used political capital well this year? Or do you feel like they burned it instead of invested it?
I think we could have done a lot more. And that is a sentiment for many House colleagues. And, you know, power comes and power goes. And the hope is at some point we can earn the trust of folks. But the Republicans for the last 2 years have been telling us what they could do and what they should do. And now they have the opportunity to, where the rubber meets the road, to demonstrate that. Or will we see hypocrisy and political antics? The public will decide what the 103rd legislature does under a Republican House and a Democratic Senate and governor.
Representative, thanks for doing the program.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you.
Likewise.
Did people tell you not to show up?
I heard you were going to do a call to House.
Let's let it go at that, okay? Thank you, sir.
Yeah.